The U.S. struck Iran for the 9th night in a row, and CENTCOM says these strikes are continuing to degrade Iran's ability to attack vessels in the Strait of Hormuz. Retired four-star General Jack Keane joins me. General, are we looking for an all-out military win here? Are we looking for a surrender from the Iranians?
Not yet. I mean, what we're doing right now is a limited operation focused on the Straits of Hormuz. You know, what we had was what we thought was something of a diplomatic solution. We had an MOU that our president signed, and so did Iran's president. And what they were really agreeing to was all the tough issues we were going to negotiate except for one. They had an agreement on opening the Straits of Hormuz. Iran was supposed to announce that it's open. They were not going to interfere with it. And the United States removed its blockade. And days later, what did we get? Iran interfered with it, and we have been retaliating against that because Iran was not going to willingly open the Straits of Hormuz. And we're conducting a military operation to do just that. And it's likely will take a few weeks to accomplish that task. And we've been outlining what really is taking place here in terms of taking down their drones, their missiles, their fast boats, their radar systems, their command and control logistics that support them, the ability to resupply them in the Straits of Hormuz is why we're taking the bridges out, but also taking down the means of retaliation. And we're identifying every day what Iran is doing in the Gulf states and also to U.S. bases. And tragically, we lost two soldiers, Lieutenant Feehan and Private Gonzalez.
Earlier today,
those losses are not replaceable, obviously, and our hearts go out to the families in dealing with them. But the reality is, this is not major combat operations yet, Stuart. This is a limited operation to open the Straits of Hormuz.
Because we had a report, and you just came to us earlier today, Kuwaiti air defenses intercepted missile and drone attacks that came from Iran. So the Iranians are still capable of waging war on America and their neighbors. We've not eliminated that capacity entirely, have we?
No, we haven't. When we stopped the war after 39 days, and we believed at that time the IDF leadership and our own military leadership, led by Admiral Cooper, believed they had about 2 weeks left to complete their military assigned objectives. And they estimated about 25% of the targets remained. So when it comes to Iran's retaliation capability, what they're using, Stuart, is largely missiles, mostly ballistic missiles. We had, when we stopped, there was somewhere in the neighborhood of north of 1,500 of those and about 150 to 170 launchers. And they have them in tunnels protected so that we can't get them with deep penetration bombs. But we rubbled the entrances so they couldn't get them out. Well, over the last 90 days, they've been doing what? They've been getting them out of there and launching them. So we are trying to systematically destroy them. So, I mean, what happens is it just naturally focuses on everything we accomplished in those first 39 days, and there wasn't much focus on what we had yet to accomplish. And one of those things is what the Iranians are dealing with, and that's ballistic missiles and drones. But we are taking them down. And if you look at the trend, what they were doing for 39 days in firing drones and missiles, and where that is now, it's considerably less. Although tragically, we lost 2 soldiers and likely a third one as well as a result of it. But listen, the problem with our allies here, Stuart, let's just put it on the table, is twice before, during this 90-day period, once when we tried to conduct Project Freedom, which was opening the Straits of Hormuz, and another time when it looked like the president was leaning several weeks ago to go back to major combat operations, our allies in the region talked us down from doing just that because of the impact it would take on them. We've been protecting these allies since World War II with a nuclear umbrella. We've had conventional forces to help protect them. We helped to shield them from radical Islamist groups that have been operating in the region, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, etc. And we're asking them to share the burden with us here. And the burden isn't just defending with missiles. The burden is casualties also. We're taking the risk, and we expect them to accept some risk too, and use a term that I'm familiar with. Let's just man up here and face it. what has to happen and stop getting weak-kneed they have done in the past.
Last one, General. Iran's Supreme Leader Muqtada Khomeini has not been seen in public since he took over after his father was killed. An Israeli security source says he's not even in Iran. So, General, where could he be? Or is this just disinformation?
I don't know. We had reports of some weeks ago that, he was not alive. But I've been told he is alive. I don't know anything about what you're suggesting, but given the fact that he has been seriously injured and somewhat disfigured and maybe even dismembered as a result of it, all of those things have been out there in the media, he may be moved to a place that can take care of him surgically and rehabilitation-wise, where he's not under the threat of U.S. and Israel bombs. That's reasonable that something like that could take place. Okay. But listen, I don't think it makes that much difference. The reality is we have people in charge who are now, I'm assuming, trying to appeal to the administration and saying the words that are necessary to get us to do what? Stop firing. Because that's what they did after 39 days. And so they're probably telling us, listen, we will make a deal. We made a mistake. We're sorry about that. We've got it all together now. We will open the straits. We will do this. We will do that. They are really good at saying what we want to hear. Yeah. And I think they have already proved who they are. They violated a deal that their president signed just several days after he signed it.
Yep.
And we've always said, Stuart, right here on your show, not only do they lie and cheat, but even if they put pen to a paper on a deal, they won't comply with it. Well, they just gave us plenty of evidence of that. They haven't complied with it.
Yep, got it. General Jack Keane, always great. Thank you very much for joining us, General. Always appreciated, too. Thank you very much, sir.